Ask Reddit by this check 4267. What's a small, seemingly insignificant decision you've made that ended up having a huge impact on your life? Took the wrong train in a new city to a minimum wage job that I didn't want but needed at the time. Asked a random guy for directions when phone GPS still kind of sucked. He happened to be going in the same general direction. We rode a train together and nerded out on films we were into. He was an aspiring filmmaker, very beginnings of aspirations, and I was just a film nerd without any post-high school education or thought of breaking into the industry. We ended up becoming roommates and collaborators eventually. Sold our first film to IFC like 2 years ago. What was the film called? Worked in a kindergarten during my gap years between high school and university. I didn't even plan to go at the time. A kid with speech and social issues happened to take a special liking to me, resulting in me agreeing to work closely with his speech therapist, despite only being the teacher's assistant. This reignited my interest in language and made me apply to be a linguistics major. My high school grades made it a long shot, but it turns out that very year they tested out a new system of accepting 50% of students based on motivational essays, to try to combat a high dropout rate in linguistics. I made it in on that. They ditched it the next year cause it didn't work. I now have masters in language psychology and start teaching at the same university this semester. If I had applied literally any other year, my chances would have been like lottery odds. I hope you share this with the university and try and find another program like this for kids with a similar story to yours. Me and 2 other co-workers decided to grab some dinner after our shift. One ended up cancelling, so I thought my other co-worker would cancel too. We were both hungry, so we decided to still grab dinner together. We'd been co-workers for over a year and have always gotten along, but this dinner truly felt like a first date. It was so enjoyable and we talked so much that we didn't realize the restaurant had been closed and that the workers had been cleaning up around us. Servers were too nice to interrupt our conversation. Him and I ended up falling in love soon after that. Been together for over 6 happy years and wouldn't change a thing. Did the co-worker that cancelled any to seeing you up? I was with my mom at a bar in Paris. She was a pain in the ass about what specifically she wanted to eat, so we left without finishing the drinks 10 minutes after. Their bar got shot by terrorists. Edit, I added, to be more clear. Shit. That's a lot of noise. TK. 2015? I had a blog where I couldn't figure out some HTML code, so I emailed the blog of another person who had figured it and they sent me the code. They lived about 1,000 miles from me and had never spoken before. 4 years later we're married, bought a house, and have a child together. Edit. For those curious, here is more elaboration on the ORS equals share and amp, UTM medium equals IOSAP and amp, UTM name equals IASKs and amp, UTM content equals 1 and amp, UTM term equals 1 and amp, context equals 3. So you stole the code, house and child? I was doing online dating with no success and I was ready to give up. I almost cancelled my date just out of pessimism but figured it's already scheduled, I'll just go, and if it doesn't work out I'll just take a break from dating. The date lasted about 8 hours and 15 years later we're still together. 8 hours and 15 years? Fuck, that's a long date. Was at a conference and stepped outside for a smoke. Bumped into a friend of mine who introduced me to the man he was walking with. That man encouraged me to apply for an opening in his office and 6 months later, he hired me. It was the job that jump-started my career, changing my trajectory. And all because of a bad habit. Do you still smoke? Haha. I took a job in an emergency room doing insurance paperwork. I thought, okay, but what happens before they get to the hospital? That exposure lead to a career as a first responder. I never would have imagined I would be helping people in emergencies, been doing it every day for decades. I love this. The smallest things lead people into first responder careers and they spend the rest of their lives adrenaline junkies. I went to prison for a robbery. I did it. I was a heroin addict. After almost 5 years in, at a work center, I got a write-up which would make me stay in for a few months longer. The warden offered a deal if I would paint a mural at a local high school of their mascot, they'd forgive the retoupe. I had always been good at drawing, they knew that, which is why they asked, but had never done a mural. I figured out how to scale it up in my head and did it. I got out about 6 months later and made it my career. I'm now married, happy, and fully booked until summer of next year for work, owning my own business. In September, I will have been out for 10 years. I also hid my initials in the high school mascot mural. Did you ever thank that warden, who was obviously a decent man? I was flying to Costa Rica to go backpacking south from there. My sister told me to fly into Guatemala. I had to see it. So I did, and here I am still 10 years later, with a son and a life I never imagined. Guatemala is a hidden gem. My mom goes there every year. On a night out I went to Burger King and at the last second decided to get chicken nuggets with my burger instead of chips. I ate the burger but didn't feel like the nuggets by this point, and wished I'd gotten chips instead, so I asked the person opposite me on the bus if he wanted them. My exact words were, "Hey lad, do you want my chicken nuggets?" He said yes and we got talking. That was 16 years ago and now we are married with a beautiful daughter. My mental image is that of a British punk girl saying this to a regular looking dude. And it's both funny and cute. I'm glad to say that you guys are so happy together. Entered the green card lottery. Friend was trying to figure out how to do it, so I downloaded the instructions and completed an application to show them how. Since it was easier than asking them for all their info, I made a dummy application using my own info. When I was done I thought meh, might as well, and dropped my application into the outgoing mail. Then forgot all about it. I was highly confused when, nearly a year later, I got a letter from the State Department. I've been in the US for 20 years now, married, kids, the whole thing. Biggest change I ever made, and it was just a random 15-minute thing I did to help a buddy. What about your friend? Started working at age 16. My supervisor suggested I sign up for profit sharing, a 401k precursor. Stayed with that company for 25 years, made a nice contribution to my retirement later in life. I did the same thing. When it was time for my first raise I was also eligible to sign up for profit sharing. An old timer told me to put the raise into the program because I wouldn't miss the money. With the company match it turned into over 6 figures by the I left the company. I chose to be nice to everyone in high school, even the kids people thought were weird. Fucked my life up pretty bad 10 years ago and recently got a call asking if I wanted to train as a software developer by one of those kids. I was frying chicken in a gas station for scraps. Dude told me he remembered me being smart and into that stuff and knew I could learn fast. Edit. Thanks for all the stories and responses. It kinda makes me tear up seeing everything you all had to say. Life is hard sometimes, so just be excellent to each other. You never know what kind of impact you can have. Hell yeah mate. Hope you're enjoying life more these days. I broke my hand playing soccer in high school, fell, landed awkwardly. Consequently, all I could do for gym class was walk a loop around the track the entire class period until my cast came off. A girl had a cast on her broken finger, hers got accidentally closed in a car door, so she walked with me every day, and we talked and hit it off. 20+ years later we're married with a couple of kids. I met my wife in AP Bio and we just happened to hit it off because we both liked Star Wars. A mutual friend said, "You both like Star Wars? You two are gonna get married." We did, nearly 15 years later. A kid's birthday party I wasn't planning to go to, I changed my mind at the last second, met my husband there. Just saying yes to invitations can unexpectedly change your life for the better. Grabbed a beer instead of going home early. I got offered a job when I was struggling to find a first job. Was it in bear angling? I had just moved to Florida from PA with my brother, and we decided to grab lunch at a restaurant we'd never been to before. Got to chatting with the waitress, explained we were new, etc. She brought over her manager and amp. He offered me a job on the spot. Met a cute bartender, and 10 years later, we're married with a 5-year-old. Live in a new big city together. Just jumped on the gravy train of life head first by picking that place to eat at. I'm imagining someone jumping onto a train head first. It took a random part-time job out of desperation making wooden skateboard racks. 12 years later I'm deeply embedded in the woodworking industry and found a career. Didn't see that coming. Edit. Appreciate the gold. I'd call that a classy move. It's destined. Playing WoW. I picked Druid. Ended up loving playing a healer. Decided to become a nurse IRL. Still like being on the healing team. Good thing you didn't pick Warlock. 2015, in Ukraine. Vinnytsia to be exact. Went to shop to buy a bottle of water. No gas, no flavor, just a simple water bottle. Ended up getting married with cashier who saw me a few times and was always curious to know what the fuck I'm doing in that part of the country. Deleted. Took an art appreciation course in college. Had a career that had nothing to do with art, but I've spent at least part of every holiday since then touring museums in different world cities, and various states and provinces in the US and Canada. It's given me so much enjoyment in life. I teach art appreciation and studio art classes. This made my whole day. It feels so good to see people find joy in art. Nearly didn't go to a blind date, but he was my soulmate. I knew in a blink when I met him. Lasted 33 years and I still miss him. I'm sorry for your loss. Accepted an invite to some dude's team on Overwatch video game. Now I live on the opposite side of the country with him and we have 2 dogs and a Costco membership. The Costco membership means you guys are serious. Decided to relax my leg while trying to kick the ball. Missed the ball and fucked my knee up. 2 years later still hurts. Thank you for sharing a depressing answer. Everything here is very inspiring. Was talking about communication encryption on a conference panel moderated by my friend, and I gave an example about unsecured Russian comms from the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. I was a full-time programmer back then. After the conference ended, my friend came to me and said, "Hey, I just started a new magazine. Would you write an article about the Russo-Japanese War for me?" Yeah, sure, why not? 10 years later, 1,000 articles later and 8 books later, I am somehow a fairly known author, journalist, blogger, and someone started a check Wikipedia entry about me. Still do some programming in PHP, Python and C++, though. You were a full-time programmer in 1904 to 1905? I don't believe it. Went for a jog even though I didn't want to. Ended meeting a cute woman who was a bit of a motor mouth, but we had a lot in common. We ended up dating for about 4 years. We wanted different things and ended it, but she's still a fantastic friend. How do you even meet someone out on a jog? My new desk job's internet filter stopped me from going to my favorite websites. It didn't block BoardGamer.com, however, so I ended up spending my downtime at work researching board games, game designers, and publishers. I read about a game I couldn't find a copy of and put together a version of how I thought it might play. Later I found out I was totally wrong about how that game worked, but I preferred my version of the game. Yada yada yada, I'm an award-winning board game designer now. Edit. Sorry to disappoint, but this Reddit profile is far too incriminating to share my game, and therefore my real identity, with you guys. It's about the cones. Took an antibiotic for a possible infection and was perfectly healthy before. Ended up with permanent nerve damage at 24 years old, and it turns out I never had an infection to begin with. Ciprofloxacin? Adopted a dog. I didn't even adopt her. My wife asked if she could adopt a dog and I merely agreed to it. My mental health improved approximately 1000% after getting the dog. The routine of feeding, walking, and playing with the pup just keeps me going, and I never get that empty feeling of being by myself. Broke up with my high school sweetheart before college because I didn't want a long distance relationship. I would come to regret it and miss her miserably over the next 5 years, even while dating other people. I would stalk her MySpace pics, yes I'm that old, and she just got more and more beautiful every day. One day, my friends were grabbing a bite to eat then heading to the local mall. They invited me but I wasn't feeling it and absolutely refused to go. They managed to talk me into it. Long story short, I bumped into that old flame at the Sunglass Hut and the rest is history. Happily married for 12 years with a great life and 2 amazing kids. I always think about what would have happened, or not happened, if I had the will to say no to my friends just one more time. It just seems so improbable to me how my life turned on that one decision. Checking out a new tea shop that opened up in my area. I became friends with the owner and she told me about a coding boot camp, and less than a year later I had a great new career. What was the boot camp? I volunteered feeding the homeless at a local church years ago. Now I'm in a senior position addressing homelessness for the city of Los Angeles. You sure got your hands full. Good luck. Had dropped out of college and then decided to return. Applied for housing and the housing office gave me the choice between 2 rooms. I chose one and ended up dating the resident assistant on my hall. We married 3 years later and just celebrated our 26th anniversary. Saw an absolutely gorgeous guy on a dating app. He was absolutely stunning, and so far out of my league. Normally I would never have messaged someone so obviously attractive, but I felt I needed to tell him that I thought he was the most attractive person I'd seen online. We've been together 11 years, married for 7, and I've never been happier. Oh, and he thinks I am the hottest thing on legs, so that's a huge bonus. That is so fucking awesome and I'm genuinely happy for you, internet stranger. Watched a beginner Blender tutorial series. Pretty sure that played a large part of why I got hired at my current company, and I just received a promotion after less than a year with a $10k a year raise that involves me using Blender to make beauty renders for marketing material. It was the donut, wasn't it? Getting a cat. I feel like she has done a lot of positive things to my psyche, against my loneliness, and also helped my mother. Cat sure turned the home into a comfy place. On Friday the 1st of August 1997, I was going to go straight home from work, but a colleague talked me into going to the pub for a quick pint. 2 hours, a couple of shared joints and amp. 4 pints later, I got on my push bike and amp, made it about a quarter of the way home before coming off at the bottom of a steep hill and amp, nearly getting killed. I was supposed to be going on a residential course the following Monday, but I was in hospital. I had to rebook onto another sitting, 5 weeks later, and 300 miles away. And that's where I met my wife, who was living overseas at the time, but by coincidence was planning to move back to where she grew up, literally walking distance from where I was living at the time. Not only did the accident cause me to meet the woman currently sitting next to me on the sofa, but forced me to completely reassess my life. I got my drinking and amp, drug abuse under control, and have since gone sober, and got me off the self-destructive path I was on. Till push bike is bicycle in British English. I'm terrible at judo and dislocated someone's shoulder. Felt guilty, so decided to learn first aid and found a course 40 minutes from where I live. Met my wife there, and I often think, what if I didn't slip up whilst training? As an ex-judoka, I can tell you this, even when you are good at judo, this happens. I got my collarbone fractured from a tomoe age, and I hear so many stories of people who blow out their knees. About 22 years ago, I was fresh out of high school and had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I went out rollerblading one evening and I decided to go down this road that looked familiar. I noticed a house and thought, hey, that kinda looks like my buddy from HS's house, so I decided to knock. Sure enough, it was his house. He was having a Raylon party that weekend and invited me to come over, so I did. Ended up meeting this obnoxious kid who wouldn't leave me alone. Kid ends up becoming my best friend and shaping the direction of my life. He eventually convinces me to play World of Warcraft when it came out. Roughly 3 years later, I met my now wife in WoW. All because I decided to go up and knock on a door. All because of rollerblades. Decided to work out again. I'm loving it and I'm so much happier. Same. I finally don't have a physically demanding job. So I'm really happy for my workouts, even though I'm not working out so much. Have other things in life that take my time. I stopped at a grocery store, and I saw a man standing next to his truck with a bunch of puppies. I approached him and ended up taking him my little angel of a dog. He gave me her for free. OMG, that's how I got Princess. This shady dude had her in his pocket. She was the tiniest dog and I had to beg my dad to keep her. I had no direction in college, so after year 3 I decided to take a break and just work. I already had a part-time job on the books and a friend encouraged me to look into a position he knew about in pharmacy. It was off the books, I had free time, so I decided to give it a shot. My boss taught me everything and had patience with me. I took to it like a fish in water and worked 2 part-time jobs while I decided what to do about college. 30-something years later, I'm licensed and proud to say I've learned a lot. That part-time, off-the-books gig developed into a recession-proof job in healthcare that made it possible to provide for myself and family. Never thought I'd be in healthcare, and steadily climbed that occupational ladder. Don't be afraid to jump into new areas, especially if the support training is there. Going to the gym. Now a year later, my life has entirely changed. I think different, I live different, I eat different. Love that. Keep pushing. Deleted. Tell me more about it. Went to a bonfire, met a random person who diagnosed me with a serious illness that I immediately got treated for, and now I'm living life healthier, happier and more fulfilled than ever before. More info? Accompanied a friend to a wedding because she didn't want to show up without a date. It was boring and tacky, and I was impatient to head to a bar afterward. But on the way back downtown from the wedding reception, my friend needed to stop by this block party and deliver a birthday present to her neighbor. I grudgingly agreed to go for a little while before continuing to the bar. On the way from the car to the party, my friend casually mentioned that she'd been meaning to introduce me to her neighbor. Actually, I smelled a setup, but went along anyway. 2 hours later, I'd completely forgotten about the bar and pretty much anything else, as the neighbor and I had been excitedly talking to each other at the party, to the point of ignoring everyone around us. Our kid just started kindergarten earlier this month. Edit. Fixed neighbor said I to neighbor and I. Damned autocorrect. First month of uni. Can't wait to take faster bus home to take a dump and continue playing whatever. Cute girl I've helped with some computer tech class asks which bus I take as she thinks we live nearby. Decide to hug. Fine, I'll take the longer one. It's 11 years later. Quit drinking and smoking. Have depression under control. Finished 2 masters. Was about to quit bachelor's in the upcoming week. I'm petting our poodle, playing with our 9-month-old son while my super hot redhead, freckled, funnier than me, Smarter than me, salt of the earth wife takes shower. And I'm asking myself how the duck I've got so used to this that I needed this post to get reminded how bloody unfairly lucky I've been. All thanks to deciding to hold that dump half an hour longer. But how satisfying was that poo? I ran to catch a train home for Christmas and just caught it. Thought I saw a friend of my sister 2 wagons in front, so I made my way through that full train and found him. He invited me to go for a beer with his friends in the new year. Out of curiosity I went and met a really cute guy in that group. I typed my number into his phone because I wanted to be obvious. That was almost 10 years ago. We've been married for 4. It blows my mind that if I didn't run for that train our wonderful daughter wouldn't even exist. I didn't want to see my ex on my Instagram feed, so I deleted the app thinking I'll install it after 2 days. A week went by and I forgot that I had to download Instagram again. Now it's been 2 years without IG and my mental state is in a much better place. Finally deleted IG and FB after reading this.